Good Monday morning. This is Dick Black, Senator Dick Black, retired, and this is Focus on the News. You can always reach us at the Twitter symbol at SEN Richard Black. So we're going to kick off right now with our topic of the morning, which is the Army sees a sharp decline in white recruits. I suppose you might also term it as, why won't those damn honkies join our new woke army? So we're joined by Suzanne Satterfield. She is just a delightful activist trying to unravel our school situation and some of this transgenderism that's seeped into the schools and so forth. And she is with us today because she was headed off for Richmond to lobby the new legislature, and she got snowed out. So Suzanne is welcome. Join us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, the military.com and some other sources have been running this article, which is very dramatic. The Army, well, first of all, there has been a tremendous drop in recruiting. People are just not signing up for the military. But now as they start to analyze and get into the details of it, it turns out that the vast majority of it is a very sharp decline in the enlistment by white young men and young women also, and it accounts for the greatest part of this historic recruiting slump. And the Army officials are mystified. You know, why won't these white oppressors and extremists and Christians and Southerners, why won't they join our new woke army? You know, one of the benefits the Army offers now is that you can join and you can get your transgender surgery as soon as you sign up. What do you think, Suzanne?
I think it's absolutely disgusting. I told people the word I think I used descriptive most in 23 for a lot of this was disgusting, and the word's going to stand for 24.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing. What happened? You go back to May of 2021, and New York Times was running an article saying that the Department of Homeland Security was saying that the greatest domestic threat facing the United States were white supremacists. Of course, we had just been through this sort of revolution in the streets with the BLM and Antifa mobs sweeping through, chasing people through the streets, beating them, sometimes almost to death, murdering police all over the place. And all of a sudden, the Department of Justice and Homeland Security said these are the biggest threats. It's white extremists, and a white extremist was described, somebody who I gather has pride in the white, in their own race, their own heritage, so forth, and so then that's followed up, and when we got our new Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, he immediately ordered a Department of Defense stand down. The entire Department of Defense was to stand down for, I don't know what it was, 30 days or so. And the purpose was to root out all of these white extremists in the ranks. And so, of course, you had the question, then what is an extremist? People who considered themselves patriots were labeled extremists. You had a lot of traditionally, the kind of the heart and soul of the military has been people from the South. Now that's changed over time, but you know, when we went into the Spanish-American War, we had former Confederate generals who were now Union generals, and they were leading the charge in Cuba, and then First World War, tremendous number of Southerners. Second World War, great number. You know, and gradually it started to even out. But in any event, you have people who have a very proud military heritage that dates all the way back to the Civil War. And, you know, historically, the United States has not looked at people who fought in the Civil War as traitors. It's just, you know, particularly in the last 10 years or so, there's been a rewriting of American history to sort of revise and get the American history to conform to this new critical race theory. But it's you know, you look at it and you say, you know, from the perspective of a young white Christian, you know, a normal person, not a deviant or anything, what's going to draw you? You know, you're under the command of people who literally hate your guts. I mean, that's the message that I see for, you know, people who are really love their country, and they're really patriotic and willing to sacrifice everything for it. It's a very strange world we live in today.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, parents were proud, right, of their children that had a want to serve their country, you know, a willingness to serve their country. And there are those of us now that are like, don't go there. Don't go there because of you being white, Christian, and then conservative on top of it. You have an X on your back. Why would you? It's like you're immediately going into war. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And it's sad, and it hurts at the heart level to try and dissuade your child from looking towards the military, especially when you think in the area where we live, right? You know, we have so many people that we know that are in the military or have been in the military. Some people like yourself, very commendable, people to look up to. And you are now to the point where you're like, these, sadly, what should be role models, because you're still a role model, but you know what I'm saying? It's not the military of what you were in. It's not the military of 20 years ago. And now, you know, on top of it, they're now saying that they're looking like they're saying that illegals are going to be able to serve in our military. So they're trying to do what anymore? In fact, I was at a event right before the election. Mike Van Meter was running for Virginia Senate as a delegate, and he had Mark Morgan, the FBI, who's he was under Obama and under Trump as a border security commissioner. And he was talking about fentanyl. And so this was early November, there were at least close to 120,000 military aged 18 to 40-year-olds that have died of fentanyl poisoning in our country in the past 12 months from that period. What does that tell you? I mean, you have to talk about it that way, right? They are bringing in illegals with a deadly substance to wipe. You know, you cannot look away from the idea to wipe out our military age citizens and replace them with illegal immigrants. And look at those illegal immigrants. They're not coming from England. You know, they're not coming from trusted groups. They're coming from areas where a lot of these are criminals. Well, and of course, in my book, they're criminals anyways because they've crossed the border illegally. But
Yeah.
of course, these countries are letting them go free because it's easier for them to send them over here.
Well, you can count on it that these countries are clearing out their prisons. They're clearing out the insane asylums. Send them over here. We have talked about this a lot. I was so disappointed. Now I haven't really read up on this, but I understand that the deal that was cut on the budget will now give work permits to all of these millions and millions of illegal criminal invaders coming into the country. And you think if you are a young immigrant, let's say you're working doing just ordinary stuff. Maybe you're working doing lawn work, or you're working in a hotel, cleaning up but I'm talking about sort of minimum wage kind of things. And all of a sudden you have got to compete with 10 million additional people. And that the result is going to be that these people are going to be hired under the table. And they're going to have work permits and so forth. That'll keep the employers from getting in trouble. But you will not rise. You won't make more money because the supply and demand works in labor. And so here you are, you've worked real hard, you've eked out a living, and now you're just being slammed, and you're being held down at the lowest wage possible because there's an unlimited supply of people who will fly over here from Sudan, smash through our borders, invade the country, and take your place.
Well, and we're at the level now, though, too, is also, so you have the language barrier. Mike even talked about himself as, he's a therapist over in Fairfax in a treatment area. And there are people, Mark Morgan talked about I think it's like over 200 different languages people are speaking that are coming over those borders. And that what Mike Van Meter was saying, that he's actually had some people come in for treatment that the translator doesn't even know what they're saying. And they're like, look, I know a lot of different languages, and I'm telling you, I don't even think they're speaking a language that they like, because some of these people are also very poor, right? They're uneducated. They sold themselves to come over here, and it's really scary. And we're coming over, they come over here, we're giving them phones, we're giving them nice places to stay. That's what you talked about. Even the places that they're staying, that they're putting up, is above and beyond what even Obama did. And so if they're given everything for coming over illegally, what kind of employees are they going to be? Those that you can even round up, because there's a whole that are absorbed. We don't really know. Well, the government doesn't know where they are, right? In fact, he talked about the majority. It was crazy. It was something like 80% at least is being spent of the Border Patrol's time of just pushing these people through, just pushing them through.
Yeah, we're not even identifying who they are. We're not fingerprinting them or keeping any records. They just, they're being moved to areas where they can shift the vote to the Democratic Party. And there's a very deliberate, massive campaign to change the demographics of the United States. We talked about this on the last show, that there is now a major pipeline of impoverished people from Sudan being paid you know, they're given tickets to fly over to Mexico and to join these caravans and smash through the border. And the you know the cost of a ticket may be 10 years of income in
Mhm.
Sudan. So where do they come up with it? Well, they're getting it from Democrat billionaire mega donors who are saying, okay, we'll do it. We'll smash the makeup of all of our cities until they're all cesspools like Baltimore and San Francisco and places like that.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, and
It makes you wonder what, you know, if you sign up and you say, okay, I'm here and I swear an oath to the Constitution. What are you fighting for? What what are the values and who are we as what is an American anymore? It's apparently somebody who's paid to come from Sudan. It's
well,
somebody from Cuba. It's
well,
nothing
look,
anymore.
don't you wonder how many of them they've bussed to these pro-Palestine rallies? How many of them were given those flags that you could tell were brand new, right? They still had all the creases when they had the huge rally in DC. How many of them? Some people have talked about, look at the buses, like the bus carrier that showed up there. And you'll find that bus carrier has been delivering these illegals around certain parts of the country. How many of them is that's their thing, right? They're radical people. So, they have no problem signing in and joining for that. Make it look like, oh, these are Americans that are pro-Palestine. Look at the hundreds of thousands of Americans that are pro-Palestine. Imagine if you actually got to sit there like a little rounder where you got to stop them, before they could go through and check how many are actually truly American citizens there in those massive numbers.
Yeah, we don't have any way of telling who's an American citizen anymore. It's just we really had better hope that that something happens in this election coming up. I understand that the results from Iowa will be coming in probably late tonight.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens there. But we're really going to need some very, very dramatic change. One of the things that typically the people who really are your best recruiters are the people who served in uniform. And, I used to talk to a lot of young people about service and this kind of thing. And I was always reluctant to tell somebody to join up because I had an experience back when I was a young pilot getting ready to go to Vietnam, and I had a fellow, his name was Bobby. I can't remember his last name, but just a great kid. I met him at church, and we talk about all the clownish adventures I was in flight training. I mean, I was a very reckless young pilot, and I did insane things. And anyway, he was excited about it, and he liked the idea. And after I went to Vietnam and managed to come back wounded but alive, and I took a trip to Pensacola, and I went to the church. And one of the things I wanted to see Bobby and tell him, all of the exciting stuff. And I talked with one of the girls there that I knew, and she said, hadn't you heard? Heard what? Bobby's dead. He joined. He became an Army warrant officer and a helicopter pilot, and he was shot down, killed in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So I'm just leery of that, and but at the same time, I've always been kind of a go-to person where, I've been in more combat than anybody, any general officer who's on active duty in DOD today. And but today I look and, you know, the fact that we've got all these homosexuals in uniform. They actually had a specific recruitment campaign at one time where they had it was sort of a cartoon of a girl who said, "I've got two mommies, and my mommies took me out to homosexual pride parades, and this is why I'm signing up. This is why I'm fighting, you know, or not fighting, but this is why I joined the Army." Well, that really doesn't attract young, white, predominantly Christian men. And when we have the FBI start doing undercover operations in Catholic churches, you know, all of a sudden, if you're from this particular Christian denomination, you're an enemy of the state. Everybody's an enemy of the state, and we wonder, well, what exactly are we defending? We're not defending the border, but we're fighting. We're spending floods of money over in Ukraine to set the border between Ukraine and Russia. We're going off and saying, well, we're going to stir up war over between Taiwan and China if we can. And for what? I don't, what does that have to do? Probably the only war that I have supported with any, enthusiasm at all is a war to defend the southern border. And if somebody said, we want to draft your grandchildren to go and to fight on the southern border against this Mexican government, I would probably say, all right, we've got to do it. Let's go for it. But if somebody says we want your grandchildren to go off to fight in Ukraine or all of these other, we're fighting in a dozen places. I think we're fighting in Yemen. We're fighting everywhere. I don't want to see them go and fight. I mean, most of it's just nonsense. And the one place that truly is a threat, we've never had a threat like we have from Mexico today. Since the War of 1812, we actually had an invasion by the British in 1812. That was a pretty big deal. But I don't think it was as big a deal as the threat across the border today.
Well, no, it can't be, because again, this isn't just people. These are criminals, and they're bringing in a deadly substance to wipe out our people. This substance is not something that everybody can identify as, one particular image, right? They're putting it in things that look like Tylenol. They're putting it in, things for just for a headache. It's slipping in everywhere. And so you have to. I've had to tell my own son, and as we've told it within my husband and I, is, if you absolutely don't know the person and you didn't, trust them like a good friend or a family member, and see them open that Tylenol bottle, you do not take it. You do not take it. You keep your own things that you need to help you, when you don't feel well, readily available. And you cannot take it. And it's crazy. It's crazy. It's something I would have thought my grandmother would have tried to warn me. But, remember there was that Tylenol scare, gosh, how many years ago, when they, through the manufacturing facility, but that was taken care of, and you still kind of always looked and wondered. And it was kind of funny when I had my son, when he was really a baby and a toddler. I remember that all the children's, the babies, the formulas and things all had extra protection when you opened the cap. And all the general consumer products didn't. That's since changed, because I always wondered, I'm like, well, why do we trust, you could open a Gatorade back then and somebody could have slipped something in the Gatorade, put the cap on, and then you could have, got it. But they have added that into a lot more products since that time. But yeah, I mean, these people mostly have not come because they're good people. And then sadly, there's children that are being brought across the border that are being used. In fact, that was the thing. That's what Mark was explaining, even, was that they started to, and I think this was under Obama, when, right, a child had to be accompanied with other adults, right? So you came as it came as a family. What they did is they gave them housing, right? If you came as a family, then they put you up in some pretty nice places. And so, criminals are smart. That's how they get away with doing what they do and get masses, right, to follow. And he said there was one, so they were sending a kid back and forth to be the child of several different parents. They said they caught this one kid 9 times. They sent this young boy 9 times over the border back and forth to be the child of the family. That's what's just eats at me on the most basic level, is for years how people can't see the trafficking of children. And there are some, of course, innocent people, and there's some good ones that mix in, but unfortunately the mass majority right now are criminals. And he said himself, if you ask the FBI how many are out there that are this or that, they're like, they can't tell you, because they really don't even know themselves.
Well, Congress just turns a blind eye to all of this stuff, and they block the states from taking action to get the situation under control. But you mentioned the fentanyl. Very few Americans are aware of the magnitude of this thing, but the fact is that we're losing American lives at a rate of about 100,000 people a year to fentanyl. This is an enormous loss of life. And just to put it into perspective, we fought in the Second World War for 4 years. We lost something over 400,000 men killed in that war. You divide that by the 4 years, we have as many people dying of fentanyl overdose today as we did during the Second World War, from fighting Japan, Germany, and this mammoth global war. We're dying at that rate in the United States today. So somehow it seems like our government is blinded to all of the genuine problems that affect Americans. And unfortunately, to a very large extent, you have to look and think that so many of the congressmen, so many of the top government officials just have turned against the American people. It's not that they are simply inept. There are a certain number of fools who are at the head of the ship of state. But the problem is when you have people who really are enemies of the people, who literally sit in their offices and places in the Department of Justice and Homeland Security and DOD, and they just think I hate these people. I hate these people that I'm having to govern, and I want to crush them. I want to bring this invasion across the border so that I can bring in some other people, and we can keep all these people, all these Americans, under control by just diluting their population, and so we will see. I hope that I hope that the elections can bring some relief, but we will see what happens.
I know, God willing, so they say, right?
Yes. Well, listen, I think we're going to have to run now. Thank you very much, Suzanne, for being with us, and we appreciate very much your willingness to go down and to lobby the Virginia legislature, and we're glad that that you were snowed out so that you could join us today.
Well, thanks for everything you do. Have a great day. Thank you.
Okay, this has been Focus on the News. I'm Senator Dick Black. We will see you next Monday.